You're standing at the edge of your village. The sun is setting. Your hands are shaking. 800 kilometers away, your family is in danger. A flood is coming, or an army, or a plague. You don't know exactly what, but you know they need to leave. They need to leave now. There are no phones, no internet, no roads you could travel in time, no paper to write a letter, even if you could send one. There's just you, the wind, the fading light, and the weight of knowing that someone you love might die because you have no way to reach them. This is the problem, not some ancient riddle from a history textbook. This is the problem every single human being on Earth faced for 200,000 years. Your great-great-great-grandparents faced it. Their great-great-great-grandparents faced it. Generation after generation, waking up every day knowing that the people they loved most could vanish from the world, and they might not find out for months, or ever. And here's what they did about it. They didn't accept it. They didn't shrug and move on. They looked at the impossible distance between themselves and the people they loved, and they refused to let it win. The first solution was fire. Around 1184 BC, the Greeks figured out that if you put people on hilltops stretching across hundreds of kilometers, each one watching the horizon, you could pass a message at nearly the speed of light. One fire meant nothing, but a sequence of fires? That was language. When the city of Troy finally fell after 10 years of war, Queen Clytemnestra was sitting in Mycenae, 500 kilometers away, across mountains, across the sea. She should have waited weeks to hear the news, maybe months. Instead, she knew within hours, because someone lit a fire on the walls of Troy, and someone on a distant hilltop saw it and lit their fire, and someone further saw that and lit theirs. Flame leaping from peak to peak across the darkness, human hands passing a message through the night like a relay race against silence. One of the first telecommunications networks in human history wasn't made of wire or code. It was made of fire and people who refused to sleep. But here's where it gets stranger. The fire system had a problem. You could only say so much. Fire or no fire, yes or no, on or off. It was binary before binary existed, and humans needed more. They needed to say which army was coming, how many ships, when to run. So, somewhere in Central Africa, people solved this problem in a way that European colonizers completely failed to understand for centuries. They built drums. Not drums for music, not drums for ceremony, talking drums. Instruments that could transmit complex messages at the speed of sound across 150 kilometers in under an hour. Here's how it worked. Many African languages are tonal. The same syllable means completely different things depending on whether your voice goes up or down. So the drums didn't represent letters or sounds, they represented the pitch patterns of actual words. Drummers could send sentences, names, specific news, detailed warnings. When European colonizers pushed into the African interior, they kept hearing drumming echoing through the jungle. They wrote it off as primitive, background noise, native ritual. They had no idea they were listening to a telecommunications network that had been operating for centuries. News of their arrival was traveling ahead of them faster than they could march. Villages knew they were coming before they got there, and the colonizers never figured out how. A technology so sophisticated it was invisible to people who thought they were the advanced ones. And it gets weirder. Let's talk about the Inca Empire. The Inca controlled one of the largest empires in human history. 40,000 kilometers of roads snaking through the Andes Mountains, peaks so high the air thins, valleys so deep they disappear into cloud. A geography that should have made communication impossible. They had no writing system, no wheels, no horses, nothing that European historians considered essential for civilization. So they ran. The Inca built a network of relay runners called chasquis, trained athletes stationed every few kilometers across the entire empire. When a message needed to travel, a runner would sprint to the next station, pass the message to a fresh runner, and that runner would sprint to the next, day and night, through rain and altitude and mountain passes that would kill an untrained person. A message could travel 2,400 kilometers in 5 days, on foot, through the Andes, faster than any horse-based system in Europe at the time. The Spanish conquistadors, who eventually conquered the Inca, were genuinely baffled by how quickly the empire could coordinate. They assumed it was magic, or spies. It never occurred to them that the primitive people they were conquering had built a communication infrastructure more efficient than anything Spain had ever achieved. Here's the part nobody talks about. All of these systems required something that seems almost impossible by modern standards: trust. The Greek fire chain worked because every single person on every single hilltop stayed awake, stayed watching, didn't assume someone else would handle it. One person falls asleep, one person gets distracted, and a queen never learns her husband won the war. The talking drums worked because generations of people learned the language, maintained the instruments, passed the knowledge down. One generation decides it's not worth the effort, and an entire communication network goes silent forever. The Inca runners worked because every single runner ran, not for money, not for fame, for the empire, for the message, for the person at the other end who needed to know. These weren't technologies in the way we think of technology. They were social contracts. They were thousands of people across thousands of kilometers agreeing to be part of something bigger than themselves, agreeing that the message mattered more than their comfort, that connection was worth the cost. And then there were the pigeons. For over 3,000 years, humans took a bird, strapped a tiny message to its leg, released it into the sky, and simply hoped. Hoped it wouldn't get eaten by a hawk, hoped it wouldn't fly into a storm, hoped it would somehow, impossibly, find its way across hundreds of kilometers to exactly the right place. And here's the thing, it worked. Pigeons have magnetite crystals in their brains. They can feel the Earth's magnetic field like a built-in compass. They sense polarized light patterns in the sky. They might even smell their way home across continental distances. Scientists still don't fully understand how they do it. The Romans used them. Genghis Khan built an empire with them. Medieval bankers sent stock prices through the air on pigeon wings. In World War I, a pigeon named Cher Ami was released with a desperate message. American soldiers were trapped behind enemy lines, and their own artillery was accidentally shelling them. Cher Ami was their last hope. The pigeon flew 25 miles through heavy German fire. It got shot. It lost an eye. It lost a leg. The message canister was hanging from a tendon. It kept flying. It delivered the message. 194 soldiers survived because a bird decided to keep going. We gave medals to that pigeon. We taxidermied it and put it in a museum. Because somewhere, deep in the human soul, we recognized what it did. We saw ourselves in it. The desperation to complete the delivery, the refusal to stop, the understanding on some level that we can't explain that the message has to get through. Now here's the part that should unsettle you. Every single one of these systems exists for the same reason. Not military strategy, not commerce, not empire. They exist because humans cannot bear to be unreachable. There's something in us, something that predates language, predates civilization, predates everything we think makes us modern, that experiences silence as a kind of death. The terror isn't just that we might lose someone, it's that we might lose them, and they won't know. They won't know we tried. They won't know we loved them. They won't know we spent our last breath trying to reach them across the impossible distance. Every pigeon released into an uncertain sky, every fire lit on a lonely hilltop at midnight, every drum beaten into the humid air, every runner gasping through thin mountain oxygen, all of it says the same thing. I am here. I am alive. I need you to know. Listen. 200,000 years of human history, and that's the message. That's always been the message. You assume you're different because you have a smartphone, because your messages arrive in milliseconds, because you've never had to trust a bird with your desperate hope. But watch yourself the next time you send a text and the other person doesn't respond. Watch the anxiety build, the checking, the rechecking, the notification sound making your heart jump, the specific modern terror of delivered but not read. The way silence from someone you love feels like a small death, even when you know they're probably just busy. You feel it, don't you? The same thing. The exact same thing. The technology changed, the desperation didn't. So let's go back to where we started. You're standing at the edge of your village. The sun is setting. Your hands are shaking. 800 kilometers away, someone you love is in danger. You look around. There's a pigeon in a cage. There's a hilltop in the distance. There's a drum. There's a road that disappears into the mountains. You're not thinking about how primitive you are. You're not thinking about how limited your options are. You're thinking about one thing only. Which of these will get my message there? Because you refuse to let the distance win. Because you would rather trust a bird than accept silence. Because being unreachable is worse than being ridiculous. That person, standing there 2,000 years ago, strapping a tiny scroll to a pigeon's leg and watching it disappear into the sky, hoping against all reason that it would arrive, that's you. That's always been you. The only thing that changed is what you're holding in your hand while you wait for the reply. Here's something to sit with. We built the entire modern world, all of it. Every satellite, every fiber optic cable, every server farm, every app, because we couldn't stand the silence. We couldn't bear the distance. We needed to know that if we reached out, someone would be there. And now we have it. Instantaneous connection to almost anyone on Earth. The dream of every runner and drummer and fire watcher who ever lived. And somehow, we've never felt more alone. Maybe the technology was never the point. Maybe it was always about the reaching, the trying, the refusing to accept that the people we love are out of our grasp. Maybe a message carried by a wounded pigeon through gunfire meant more than a text that arrives in a millisecond, because someone had to care enough to send it. If this is the kind of thing your brain does at 2 a.m., you're in the right place. Subscribe. There's more where this came from.